very much. Greatly appreciate the introduction. And as some of you might be noticing, there is a hockey jersey here behind me. And I know Phil said, maybe this other city that we're speaking to has a true hockey team, but we're going to get there some point. When I heard that the theme of the conference was about attracting and engaging and converting, I guess, prospective clients into clients, to me, this is really about how do you think as an advisor? Actually, I would say as an entrepreneur, because those of you that have heard me speak in the past, I don't talk to advisors. I talk to entrepreneurs, which all of you are in this session here today and in this industry. And it's really about, being strategic and also tactical. How to connect, how to differentiate yourself, and certainly doing things a little bit differently from what you're used to doing. Specifically that we're now 23, 24 months into this pandemic with the various lockdowns. Look, as I said, folks, right? I'm speaking to entrepreneurs, and as advisors, entrepreneurs, you started off your business and, your basic concern was about, okay, putting food on the table. I need to go and acquire clients and generate some revenue. And as you continued on that path and success and growth, at some point you became, head of marketing, VP client services, VP of human resources for those of you that have a team, VP information technology. You know where I'm going with this. All these multiple hats that you're wearing as an entrepreneur. So it's only natural that at some point that business matures, or you'll hit a plateau and hit a wall. And actually, that's a good thing. That's a clear sign that you're growing. But a couple of things could happen. If you stay there and you don't adapt, you don't tweak, you have the risk of having that business decline. And what we're simply proposing here today, and I'm sure you've heard many people share with you over the last few months, it's about redefining yourself. Now, even pre-pandemic, this is something that I always discussed in workshops with advice and coaching sessions, right? Successful entrepreneurs are always looking to find a way to get to the next level, change things up. But even more so nowadays, and when this pandemic hit, shutdown happened. I often like to use the expression, the quote from Mike Tyson, a former heavyweight boxing champion of the world. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And we all kind of got punched in the face, an uppercut or whatever, a jab or whatever it was. And all the plans we had in place, your clients, kind of got sidetracked for a while, but you did it. You turned around, you make things happen. You were of presence, you were of service, and you got through this, and light shone at the end of the tunnel. And now 2021 and the fall and the winter of 2022 kicks in and say, hey, it seems like we're going back to where we were. And many advisors, I get it, the frustrations, but even more so today, I think the topics that I will share with you today over the next 20 minutes that I have can really help you kind of look things a little bit different here. And the three things I'll talk about today is this. Okay, we're at the beginning of the year. I know some of you have done a lot of this, but it's a good time to go and tweak this and refine it. One, I'm going to ask you to reflect and really look at your marketing plan. Notice I emphasize marketing. I prefer that term as opposed to business plan. It's taking a moment to refresh your story. What is your story? Okay, what does it say about you, and is it resonating with the right target audience? And then look at a different approach, and that's I call restarting your kind of marketing or engine, if you like, but the untapped potential of video. We'll talk about each of these things. My aim is to give you some quick hits. I can easily take any one of these topics and spend an hour, 90 minutes on them. In fact, we do have presentations and material that are an hour duration. So if any of you want to go in more detail, please reach out to your Sun Life or, sales director and really have a conversation. We'll be more than happy to come back and do in-depth conversations. Okay, so many of you last fall, December, and perhaps already this year, have sat down and built your business and marketing plan. And I'm really going to focus on marketing plan because to me, this is all about activities that you're doing. And as I said before, you're wearing multiple hats here. And when I sit down and talk with advisors, we always hear about, I'm busy, got lots of things on my table. There's so many things that I have to look after. I know how to prioritize. I think you're all familiar with this concept of, important, non-important, and those that are tasks that are urgent and non-urgent. And as I bring out my trusty laser point here, if you look at the bottom of the screen here, obviously these are activities that are not necessarily important. Some of them could be urgent, right? Meetings, administrations, lots of interruptions. But they are part of it. You just need to question and say, how important or how urgent are these matters? And I know many of you are focused here, right? And these are the things that are important and urgent. client work, casework, client appointments, follow. That is critical aspect to your business in closing the sale. If I'm going to attract, engage, and convert a prospect to a client, I need to do that. But there's one other area that I think most advisors tend to forget and don't spend enough time here, is really about this. How often do you spend time working on your business as opposed to just in the business? In other words, the other three quadrants where you're focused. How about spending time on this quadrant here? And this is often where I ask advisors, how often do you get together? Is it quarterly? Is it monthly? Is it semi-annual? With your team, with yourself, to do a strategic business review, right? You set some objectives at the beginning of the year or last quarter. Well, are you on target? What are the things that you've done that haven't worked on? I mean, be it half day, first day. And I know I'm talking to several hundred of you here today, and I know each and every one of you have already planned this in the schedule, but very key here. And to do that, this is where you spend time reviewing that plan that you put in place. I am not going to go in detail at depth through this, talking about a business plan. That's not what the aim is here. I really want to focus on the three things that I've highlighted here in yellow, because this all pertains to activity. Granted, a SWOT analysis is very important here, but if you want a copy of this, again, reach out to your Sun Life relationship manager. They'll be more than happy to sit down with you and go through that. I really want to focus on those three things that I've highlighted here in yellow. The first thing I had often advise advisors or suggest when they're doing some of that planning is identify that target market. Who do you want to work with and who are you working with? In other words, you really need to ask yourself the question, okay? Who are you capable of serving? Do you have the capacity, the technical skills, the team approach? But also, who do you enjoy working with, right? What type of individual do you want to work that makes this a pleasant experience, that appreciates the value of everything that you bring? Is it people that respect your process, understand that they have complexity in their life, and it's not just about fees or cost or premiums here? And who are those individuals that can contribute to your success? Just as importantly, to figure out who you want to work with, you need to better understand what are some of the things they want. What are their stress points? What are their fears? What are their concerns? You know, when you're sitting down with them and having conversations, do you recognize and understand what really makes them feel confident in the decisions? Is it working with you? Is being able to have a resource, right? Is it being educated? Again, what can you bring to that equation that adds value? Value in their eyes. And why am I suggesting you look at it this way? Because once you've clearly defined who you want to work with, the parameters, the profile of the individuals, everything you will do after that, be it your marketing. You know, you've heard the panelists talk about posts on LinkedIn, your Facebook page, whether you have a website, your email, your whatever marketing activity that you'll do, everything ends up being aligned to target that market you want to work with. And at the same time, really ends up reflecting and speaks about your brand. Excuse me, I went a little bit of quick trigger today. So to help you do this, we at Sun Life have created a tool called the Ideal Client Analysis, and it's very simple to use. As you can see, there's a couple of criteria. Now, this will be a little bit small here, but really it's about doing a couple of things. Indicating some objective and some subjective, or as I like to say, the quantitative and the qualitative data. And the quantitative is easy, right? The revenue, the assets, maybe the premiums, the situation. The qualitative is just as important, however. Right? That's the personal aspect. Are they giving me referrals? Is it ease of relationship? As I said before, do they respect my process here? And of course, in the third item is, what are some of the disqualifying factors? So, something to sit down and help you guide you through the process. Don't do it alone. If you've got a team, sit down and do with your team. It's all about, at some point, what are the activities you're going to be doing that resonates and targets the specific audience you want to work with here. Now, again, most advisors sit down and tell me who the ideal client is, but I often ask the question, do you find that in your existing clientele? And that's the challenge. So one of the suggestions we often make is sit down and do a segmentation of your book of business. Here's an example. Yes, it is a resource that we have available, but if I can bring out my laser again, it's about bringing quantitative and qualitative data. So you might be, if you're duly licensed, you might put assets under management, you might put revenue generated, the size of the premium. Those are quantitative data, but you also want to put qualitative data, as we see here. Are they an advocate? Is it personable? Does it require a lot or little of the time? But most importantly, what you end up doing is giving it a score, so that at the end of the day, you tally up the score here, and you might be in for some interesting surprises. It helps you recognize this ideal client that I want to work with, do I find them within my existing clientele? Odds are the answer is yes, but probably not the bulk of your clientele. There's probably a good segment of that clientele. So what do you do with this now? You've identified who you want to work with. You've recognized it's in your clientele. And what do you do with the segmentation? Well, this is where you're going to decide what type of activities you're going to do. Again, being strategic, but what are the tactical aspects that allow you to execute? And what do you want to do? Now, I've broken this down from ABC clients or, gold, silver, or bronze. But whatever the label you give it, realize your A or gold clients, these are the ones that are greatest return on your investments. And you really want to make sure you're top of mind and you're proactive in terms of your activities, both business and social. Think of it this way. Your A clients are someone else's A prospects. So you want to make sure that you're wrapping your arms around them. The B segment, well, there's potential here. What do you need to do to stay top of mind? Maybe it's less proactive communications and contact, but whatever you do, it's about educating them. So you're top of mind. And maybe some of these people can eventually become A clients, perhaps not because of the premium they're paying or the assets they have, but maybe because they're generating leads and referrals, so indirectly giving them. And your C clients, folks, I'm not suggesting you neglect them. No, far from it. Everybody deserves service. The question as an entrepreneur is, does everybody merit and warrant the same type of service? Or is everybody going to be generating that same type of revenue for you? So if you want to say, hey, I believe in giving service and the same level of service to everyone, all I will say is make sure you have the capacity and the team structure. So when you're going to build that client service model or activity model, whatever term you'd like to use, how do you go about doing it? Again, I wouldn't be sharing something with you unless we've got a great resource to help you. And we have this tool called the client service model here, where you can see it's sitting down and determining for my A, B's, and C's, what are some of the proactive opportunities that I have? And you do this already, right? You've heard Phil mention it and the group mention it. Your quarterly meetings, your annual reviews, your needs analysis, that's business planning and activities that you do. But you also want to integrate some of the social aspects here, and some are reactive. And what you end up doing here on the far right is we've given you a matrix, if you like, where you determine the number of activities and what you'd like to do and who is going to do that within your team. Keep in mind, okay, we often hear best practices, outperforming advisors, it's anywhere from 8 to 12 contacts. Doesn't mean meetings, folks. It's touch points, contacts. I will take it a step further. In fact, if we're looking at really outperforming advisors, many of them come back to us and say it's 12 to 16 touch points, particularly with their A or their platinum clients. Okay, enough about that, right? You've sat down and decided, okay, I need to take a moment to reflect who I want to work with. Do I have this in my clientele, and what am I going to do in terms of activities? The second point I want to touch is your brand. What is your story? In other words, if I were to sit down with you, if I were to meet you, or we were doing this virtually, and I want to ask you the question, what do you do? How would you answer? Would you answer as many of us do, if not all of us? We'd probably give a history of our background, where we've come from, many years in the industry, our degrees, our diplomas, and nothing wrong with that. But you need to tell yourself this, and particularly if you're looking to expand and look at a different generation, possibly, or different clientele. In that response to the question, what do you do? Are you giving me information that really doesn't differentiate from everyone else? Or are you giving me enough information that makes me want to say, I want to know more here. Let me ask a question. Are you engaging me in this conversation? So yes, we've got a resource, but before I give you that resource, here's the formula. And by the way, folks, why do we say tell your story in 10 seconds? Like it or not, we are human beings, and human nature is such that we've got attention spans of goldfish, right? We're always looking after that shiny, bright object in your toy here. So you're really looking to find a way to just get me interested when I ask you that question, what do you do? As opposed to all my perceptions and all this noise I'm hearing online about what an advisor really is and creating my own profile. I know you want me to be engaged with you. And so when you answer the question, are you able to tell me or identify sort of what's my problem or my target client or my niche or my network's problem, right? If you're looking to work with that specific clientele, are you able to answer and tell them, hey, I know what the problem is or the challenges you face? Are you able to tell me that you've got a plan, a process, a blueprint, without sharing everything, but just enough to attract me and intrigue me? And then third, are you able to tell that niche market the successful ending? In other words, what is the transformation they will experience? And by transformation, I mean the fact that they'll be using your services, your solutions, and working with you. This is how their lives are going to be made better and transformed. Less stress, meeting their objectives. Now, if you take a moment and think about this, right? What I've just described here is in essence a story, right? You've got, the actors, you've got the problems and the obstacles, then you've got a plan of action to overcome those obstacles, and here's the happy ending. By the way, you're doing this already with clients. It's called a retirement plan, succession plan, estate plan, whatever terminology, financial plan. This is what it is. And the reason I also position this as a story is that you are very good at telling your stories. I'm quite confident very few of you, if any, sit down in front of a client and tell them all the intricacies and characteristics, technical aspects of an insurance policy. No, you share stories. You tell them stories how, to help them paint the picture and better understand what you're bringing. Like, you know better than I do. Facts tell, but stories will sell, and sell the story of who you are. So what is your story? Here's an actual concrete example of an advisor that's shared this with us. Now, you don't have to answer the question this way, but this provides the foundation for you to be able to answer in your own words if someone asks you the question, what do you do? And think of the target market that this advisor is working with. Okay, so I've broken down into the 3 parts. So here we go. If your estate planning just transfers money without family values, that money will be lost in the 2nd or 3rd generation. So clearly, this is a problem for a certain target market, right? Perhaps older, looking for next generation, transfer the business, possibly, whatever the case may be. Our estate planning process connects your money with your values. Note, I'm not sharing them what my process is. I'm just giving them enough information to say, I want to know more about that. And how's the transformation, the happy ending? So your children become stewards of your wealth, not just beneficiaries. So clearly there's 3 parts. We're identifying, I understand the problem that this niche is facing. I've got a blueprint and a process, and here's what happens in the end, how your life is going to be transformed and be better. Folks, again, we've got a resource to help you here on the left-hand side of your screen. As you can see, we've got the brand story worksheet. We break this down into 3 parts. And more importantly, as we guide you through each and every step here, as you can see, we'll break it down. We give you questions to ask yourself. We give you some tips, and we break this down for each and every question here. So don't hesitate. Reach out to your Sun Life sales director. Sit down with them. They'll be more than happy to help you build that story. The one thing I want you to keep in mind here is this. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time and refinement, but you need to keep in mind, can you say it easily? More importantly, if you have a team, can they convey that message and say it easily? And is it simple, relevant, and repeatable? Most importantly, can your clients say it easily? In other words, is it simple enough that they can turn around and speak to their friends and family and their entourage, and in very few words explain to them what it is you do, who you do it for, and not only how you do it, but what impact that has had in their lives, and that these people should sit down, and really meet with you. That's really the crux of, defining your brand story. So take a moment to refresh that. Okay, you've taken some time, you've looked at your activities, who you want to work with, so that your messaging aligns with them. You've refreshed your brand story to make sure when you're talking to people and you're doing your LinkedIn posts, your Facebook posts, you're doing emails, it speaks about your brand, but to that target audience. I want to touch the last idea and the last tactic here. And this is really looking at the untapped potential of videos. You know what? I think this was a great idea even prior to us being into this pandemic and lockdown, but being human beings and human nature, we kind of push things off and say things are going well, right? But then this pandemic acted as a catalyst on many levels. And I think more and more advisors are starting to look at alternative ways to be in touch with their clients. You know as well as I do, you can't be everywhere all the time. And one of the things that this pandemic has impacted in terms of client-advisor relationships, some of your clients are in the habit of saying, we don't have to meet in person those 2 or 3 times. Maybe we can meet once a year or every couple of years. This is quite well. It suits me fine here. So the question then becomes, in terms of not just working with your clients, but even prospective clients, how do you reach out? How do you try and connect? How do you put yourself in front of them? And many of the advice say, Angelo, that's the magic of what I do. I get in front of people. Once I'm in front of people, that's where the magic happens. So yes, I understand you are your own best marketing asset. The question becomes, how do we go and recreate that experience of you. And this is where I think videos are a very good substitute for in-person meetings, perhaps in-person conversation. Not going to replace you entirely, but will play a very significant role going forward. I think in any marketing activity, campaign, and brand will play an important role. Why? Because videos can make your message more memorable or just memorable. If it is memorable, it means it's easy for me, the client or the prospective client, to remember it and to talk about you to someone else. It also humanizes your brand, right? It shows a little bit of who you are. If you go on your LinkedIn page, there's just a picture and a background picture. Well, who is this individual? Is there something more about them? Oh, look at this video here. And think about it. When we're talking about video, right, to a certain degree, it mimics human interaction. You know, facial expressions, sound, the look. It's not exactly you, but think of it this way. What are you going to remember most? The last book you read or your last vacation? Certainly in these contexts, probably your last vacation, right? Because we're all aching to go back on vacation. You're going to remember the sights, the sounds, the people. You're tugging and hitting the emotions. That's what it is here. And so some of you might be asking, well, how am I going to be using videos? Well, I think it could support the different stages of the business development journey, be it prospecting, connecting with referrals, or even deepening with relations. Let me show you two examples. I won't go through the videos, but I'll just show you a snapshot. Here's an advisor that has been using videos to demonstrate her expertise. And so she creates these short videos, couple-minute videos on some tax topics, doing it in a timely fashion throughout the year. So in this case, she's giving some, tips and things you need to be aware if you have an Airbnb cabin and deducting expenses. So it's an opportunity for her or for you to demonstrate your expertise. Okay? It doesn't always have to be technical ideas. It could be just general information, be it seasonal and whatnot. But you need to keep this in mind here. Okay, and I'm going to share this with you. I think last year or the prior year, there was an interesting survey done by LinkedIn that said that 90%, over 90% of individuals, of affluent individuals under 50, will go and do an online research about an advisor to find out about an advisor that has been referred to them. So think of it. The mere fact that one of your clients is referring you doesn't mean this person is going to pick up the phone and call you. They're going to want to go and get a sampling and an experience of you. And here's another example, maybe just to stay connected. Edward Martin every Monday comes up and creates the Monday Morning Money Minute. Talk about an alliteration there. It's his way to stay top of mind, to give some timely information, depending on the time of the year, some of it being personal, social, a lot of it being financial planning related. It's all about using these to connect, be it a post on your LinkedIn, be it a post on your website, Facebook, or maybe in your email campaign, providing you're expecting the proper rules and regulations, of course. Or maybe it's one way for your client to say, hey, you know what, Angelo, you need to meet my advisor. You need to go talk to this person. By the way, here's a LinkedIn profile. You know what? Here's a little video what he sends me from time to time. It gives me a sampling of what the experience could be working with you. Right. In other words, when I come into that meeting, you heard the panel discussion before talking about creating that first level of trust. To a certain degree, the video or going online and research I'm going to do to you allows me to get to know you better and make me more comfortable when I do reach out or do have that first meeting here. So it's a lot of work that needs to be done prior to that first meeting. So again, we've got some videos, we've got some resources to help you here. Where you can get this, if you want to go right away after the session or after the conference, we've got the sunlife.ca advisor best practices, and we've got tons of material, PDF documents you can download. We've also got videos to help you support them. But again, don't hesitate. Reach out to your Sun Life sales director. They'll be more than happy to sit down and do this with you or plan future sessions. Folks, I've got one more thing to add here before I wrap things up because I see I'm coming to my time here. But before I get to that, let me just tie everything together. So we looked at three things here today. And the first one was the importance, the necessity to reflect. Look at your marketing plan. The key message there was about, are you working with the right people and providing you resources to help you define who you want to work with, right? It's not just about the quantitative aspects, but it's also the qualitative, the subjective factors. Second, we looked at the importance of refreshing your story, refreshing your brand to make sure that when you're talking to people, you're attracting them to continue the conversation further. And you're not letting what the news and the noise is out there create the definition of what a financial services advisor is here. And excuse me, the last part really is about restarting, right? Using the videos as a way to connecting with people even pre-pandemic, but ever more so importantly here today in this new reality we live in. So what does this all mean to you? I think I've touched upon this already. We are dealing with not creatures of logic, but creatures of emotion. And you are very good at this, about tugging on the emotions, creating the stories that resonate for them, because we know as well as everyone else does, okay? Not very many people come wanting to buy insurance, but the solutions you bring to the table in the big picture is why they really feel they understand and need and want now as opposed to later. So it's about doing the things a little bit differently, doing more of the little things so that you are more personal, more memorable, and always remembering them that using your services, they're living a transformation. Their lives are much better for either less stress or achieving their goals and objectives. So here's my ask of you, my invitation. After you've done these next 2 days, let's sit down, leverage our resources, book your next strategic planning review of the next 24 to 40 hours, get it in your calendar. Over the next 3 weeks, sit down and work with the 10-second story brand sheet, start developing it and refining it. And perhaps over the next month or next quarter, really look at the resources in terms of segmentation and service model and start touching base with some of your existing clients to build that out and see how that works. You want more information, you want to continue that conversation. Again, I'm repeating myself. Reach out. Your Sun Life Sales Director is more than happy to sit down and work with you and give you that resource there. So on that note, I thank you. I see I'm right at 1 o'clock, so I appreciate it. And I wish you all a great conference, folks, and a very successful 2022. And yes, hopefully we'll all see each other in person soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Angelo. Couple things that I sort of pulled from that conversation, and obviously the 3 R's was really good. But one of the things you mentioned early in the talk was the target market. And one thing that I recall back in the early days of my career was knowing what your natural market is and focusing towards your target market. So I appreciated that. And the other thing was your story in 10 seconds. I don't know anyone that can tell their story in 10 seconds, maybe more like 20 to 30. But in any event, a lot of good information there. Angelo, thank you. Thank you very much.